Welcome to Network Tech Zone, friends. My name is Sanjana. In our previous video, we have configured Static NAT. Today, we are going to configure Dynamic NAT. Let's understand the difference between the Static NAT and the Dynamic NAT. We know that in case of Static NAT, manual translation is performed by an address translation device. For example, we have taken ASA earlier, okay, in our previous lab for static NAT, and it will translate one IP address to a different public IP address. So if you are having 100 devices, then you will have to create 100 static entries in the address translation table. So typically, static translation is done for inside resources that outside people want to access. So what is dynamic NAT? The dynamic NAT, you don't need to create 100 static entries in the address translation table. All you can do is you can just allocate a pool of IP address that belongs to public IP address range. Okay. And um, so when a dynamic NAT is used, when an inside user wants to access the external resource, when an inside user sends traffic through the address translation device, say the ASA firewall here, it will examine the source. It will here we have the sources R3 and R1. So when R3 and R1 is trying to send a traffic to reach to the internet, maybe it's trying to reach 8.8.8.8 or it's trying to reach this router. So the ASA will examine the source IP address and then it compares to the internal local address pool. So if this is matching, so if it finds that, okay, there's a translation present for this particular source, okay, and if it finds a match, then it will determine which inside global address pool it should use for translation, and hence the translation happens. In case of static NAT, we know static NAT is called one-to-one mapping, okay, but in case of dynamic NAT, it is called one-to-many, okay. And static NAT was bidirectional, but dynamic NAT is not bidirectional. So with this said, let's get started with the configuration. So this is a very simple topology. I have already pre-configured the IP address. I have already pre-configured the telnet. This is the same telnet command I have used for all of the three router, that is router 1, router 3, and the router outside. So it's the same enable password and the same password for Cisco for all the three. And I have also kept the routing in place. Let's just verify. Let's start with R3. So password is ENABLE. Show IP interface brief, just to make sure that you can see the IP address is configured 10.1.1.1. And let's also check the routing. So IP, show IP route. I have configured default route, and 10.1.1.2 is the interface on this ASA for the inside. So for the inside, I've taken network 10.1.1.0, out of which 1.1 is assigned for R3, 1.3 is assigned for R1 with a default route connecting towards this ASA. So let's check the default route for R1. Show IP route. Okay, so that's connected via default route with 10.1.1.2. And for the outside, I have 192.168.29.0, out of which 29.1 is my default um, router, which I'm using at my home. So this is my home router. Okay, and this is where I will be accessing the 8.8.8. Okay, and 29.3 for the router outside is assigned to this router. Okay, and let's check the routing for our router outside. So we're on a router outside. Password is ENABLA. So show IP route. You can see you have the default route, okay, towards this 192.168.29.0. So that's all. So you can just have the default route. And I have also created the access list. So let's check show run access list. Okay. And I have allowed the traffic from NA to NA for the TCP and also for my telnet, and also for the ICMP, I have allowed traffic from NA to NA. And let's check the access group, because we need to ensure once you have access list, you will have to even create access group for your access list to work. So show run access group. Show run access group. Access group, the traffic is allowed for the outside interface. Okay, and that's all about the access list and access group. So now we will go ahead and configure dynamic NAT. So before that, let's check if you already have some objects. So show run object. I don't have any. Okay, there are some objects that I created. Let me just clear this. Let me also clear if there is any NAT. Configure object. Okay, clear configure NAT. Okay, so show run object. We don't have any objects, which is good. Okay, now we will have to create objects. So let's create some objects for the pool first, and then we'll create object for the private. I have given two IP address for the range here. So anything which is, if for example, if you have another device here and it's trying to go through this pool, and if the pool is exhausted, you will the dynamic NAT will not work, because in the pool you're just specifying only two IP addresses, which is 29.99 and 29.100. So anything, if you have another host in the private network and you are trying to connect, so that will fail. So for that reason, we'll have patch. So that's what we are going to do it in our next video. But for now, let's just understand dynamic NAT. So here I have just taken two IP addresses for just the two hosts present here. So anything can be chosen, and that's going to be chosen by this ASA firewall automatically from the pool. Okay. Now let's go ahead and create pool for this range of IP, public IP address. So object network pool. Okay. And here I've taken range. Okay, because we will just specify the range for the pool. So 192 dot. So the pool starts from 192.168.29.99 until 192.168.29.100. Okay, so that's the range. So we also need to create a object for the private host. So for the private host, I'll just take the entire subnet itself. Okay, so object network private. Okay, and I will take a subnet so that it will allow all those hosts which is present in that subnet. So subnet is 10.1.1.0 and /24 for the subnet mask. Yeah. And we also need to create NAT statement. So NAT inside outside, okay, dynamic source, okay, NAT inside to outside, and then it is telling for the mapped IP address. So what is our mapped IP address? Pool, right? So this is what we are going to map the inside to the range of public IP address pool. So dynamic and then pool, where pool is the mapped IP address. So that's all with the configuration of dynamic NAT. Very simple. I'll just save this configuration now. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to reach internet if that's working. So ping 8.8.8.8. It should work. Okay, let's see. Let us clear Xlit and see to remove install sessions. And now let's initiate traffic to the internet. Ping 8.8.8.8. That's working. And let's move to R1. Ping 8.8.8.8. There it is. Okay, so we are able to reach internet. Let's also check telnet. Let's go with R3. So telnet 192.168.29.3. Cisco enable password. Okay, and let's go to R1 telnet 192.168.29.3 Cisco in enable. Okay, so you will have two telnet sessions. Let's check on the outside router. En enable password, show users, right? R3 and R1. So you can see 29.99 and 29.100. That is automatically chosen from this pool of IP address. So if you have another host here, and if you're trying to connect via that host to the internet, or maybe to this you're trying to telnet, that will fail. And so we will have to use dynamic PAT. Okay, and we are going to learn about that in the next video about dynamic PAT configuration. And let's also check the Xlit table. Show Xlit. You will see the flag is I here, which is indicating dynamic. Okay, and it's a dynamic NAT, and you will see the show NAT details. You can see there is translation hit counts because you had initiated the traffic, right? And for this origin of private IP, that is for our private subnet, we have translated it to the pool of public IP address, okay? And that's all about this show NAT details and show xlate. For the untranslation hit, it is showing 0. Let's check by sending traffic from outside, okay? And see the changes in the hit counts. So let's do a telnet for this public IP address 192.168.29.100 Cisco EN enable. It's getting us back to R1. Let's run show NAT details and see the changes for the untranslation hit counts. Show NAT details. You will see one hit count, right? Because you have initiated the translations from the outside. So, and let's check on the router outside exit of this telnet 192.168.29.100. That will get us to R3. So, okay, earlier we had, okay, yeah, 29.100 is getting us for R1. So 29.99 is what we needed. Okay, that's fine. Let's check the hit counts. So show NAT details. Definitely it will be increased, right? Because you have initiated communication from outside. Now let's just wait for telnet 192.168. Earlier we sent it for 100. So 29.99, yeah. Cisco enable. And now let's check the hit count. So it should increase. So show NAT details. That you can see increase in the untranslation hit counts when you're trying to telnet from outside to the inside. Okay, so that's all about the auto NAT. So let's configure manual NAT. Manual NAT is very simple as well. You just need to remove I'll just remove one of the command. The objects will remain the same. Let's just clear the NAT statement that we configured for auto NAT. Clear configure NAT, okay? And here I'll just go to the global configuration. I'll just say, let's make sure that we have our objects in place. Show run object. You will still keep the same pool, okay? You will still keep this private subnet. And then your statement is just NAT inside, outside, okay? And here you will say source dynamic, and your source is what? Private, right? If you will do a question mark here, it's asking for the real source, and our real source is our private. And then it's asking for the mapped source. So mapped source is nothing but the pool. That's all with the configuration for the manual NAT. Let's check. Let's clear this xlate table to remove the stale sessions. Okay, and show NAT details. For now, you will see 0 for the translation and untranslation hit counts. Let's initiate some traffic from R3 to reach internet. So exit. In ping 8.8.8.8. Let's check the NAT table. Show NAT details. You will see one for the translation hit counts. So let's go with the router one. Telnet. Okay, let's say ping. Ping 8.8.8.8. Again, you will see the hit count for the translation hits. Show NAT details. Okay. 0 for untranslation because we have not done any, we have not initiated any traffic from outside to inside. So it's translation hit count is 2. Okay. And let's check Telnet. So Telnet 192.168.29.3. Cisco enable is enable for the enable password. Let's go with R3. And for the R3, Telnet 192.168.29.3, Cisco ANABLE for the password. Now let's check the connections in our outer router. So let's just exit from this. Or you can check from this itself, right? Show users. So you will see 2 IP address for the public IP address range, and that's allocated, okay, automatically from the pool. So that's all about the configuration of manual NAT. It's very simple, and you will still be able to connect to the internet. And we will come up with another video in the next for dynamic path. I hope that this video has been informative to you all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.